morning, and thank you again for joining our webinar today, where we're going to discuss ACI's response to the COVID-19 outbreak, as well as discuss some of the applications for our pressure and temperature and humidity sensors that we're getting numerous requests about recently, and how these sensors can be used in critical environments to help mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Well, as we get started, my name is Brant Kasbohm. My contact information is on the screen. There will be a short Q&A period at the end of the webinar. If you're watching the archived version of this and you'd like to ask a question, please reach out to us. My email address, phone number on the screen. You can also find us on the various social media, which I'll give the links to those, or the addresses to those, as we near the end of the presentation. So let's get started. We are open for business. ACI is deemed an essential business. And as I sit here talking to you today, I'm in a conference room just off of our production floor at our Parview building. So just over to my left is the department where we build copper thermistor averaging. So if you do hear some background noise, that's good noise. So there are doors opening and closing, and sensors being built here just 20 feet away. So we are open. Our tech support, our sales, our engineering staff are all here and available to help you, whether it be with order and invoice questions or the technical or application support. We're here answering the phones from 7 to 5:30 every day Central Time. Please reach out to us with any engineering or any. There's a lot of challenging and demanding applications that are being rushed through right now. So we're here to help and ensure that you get the best product for that application with the fastest turnaround time. We're at full production capacity. There's no areas or departments that are shut down. I'll briefly mention that towards the end as well, but we're open. And so we're happy to help you with these challenging and critical facility applications here at any time. Thank you very much for your continued business and support during these tough times. We've implemented some procedures or additional procedures here at our shop. Most of the office staff is working from home, as are, I'm sure, most of you who are watching this webinar right now. But we are able to access our systems remotely and take your calls, answer emails, and answer any of the questions that you may have. We're trying to keep our social distancing as best we can through video conferencing, like what you're watching here, and web conferencing, as well as keeping a safe distance from people. We are making sure that packages coming in and out of our facility are kept clean and handled at an absolute minimum as well, to prevent the transmission of not only this virus, the COVID-19, but any others that we may not know about. So we've also increased the cleaning and disinfecting of our facilities here. We've got a crew here that's going through and cleaning our facilities and the common areas twice a day. All of the internal doors in our facilities are kept open, so we're not touching doorknobs and handles, and trying to keep our people and our products as safe as possible. So hopefully that's able to instill some confidence in you and the customer that when you get a product, it's been handled an absolute minimum number of times to ensure that this is a safe, clean product that you're going to be able to pass on to your customers and install in their buildings. Moving on to the specific sensors that I'd like to talk about for a few minutes today. In recent weeks, we've been getting a number of questions about certain critical facilities that are now in the forefront of everybody's mind. Specifically, things like isolation rooms, which I'll mention in more detail in just a minute. But the sensor that we have that would be the best fit for most isolation rooms is our DLP transducer that is shown here. You're not going to find a sensor that provides better overall value in the marketplace for differential pressure, for isolation rooms, for building static, and other types of pressure sensing applications. This is going to give you the combination of an extremely high level of accuracy. By default, the accuracy is 0.5%, and by special order, you can order it at plus or minus 0.25%. It's also very, very easy to install, whether you mount it in a panel or flush on a wall or in the duct. There's a removable pitot tube, duct pitot tube attachment right here on the bottom for easy duct mount. All of the instructions for setting up the dip switches are right inside of the device right here. The terminal blocks are spring-loaded, so it's easy to get the wires in and out, and it's very simple to get installed and up and running. So your technicians can spend as little time installing and commissioning these sensors, and your customer, the building owner, the facility manager can maximize their uptime, which is absolutely critical, especially in our healthcare facilities and these isolation rooms where we don't need to have rooms down because the sensors aren't working and you can't manage the negative pressure that you need to keep air in those rooms. So that's the DLP device is going to be the most comprehensive and best value in the marketplace in terms of not just the things I've talked about, but lead time. We can ship this product right away. They're building them about 50 feet from where I'm sitting here. They're in stock and can ship right away. We also have the ability for this device, as well as most of the products that we do, to provide NIST traceable certificates with each of these devices, and that's upon request. They don't come by default, but we can provide that level of calibration and documentation upon request. For these devices, they have selectable ranges, which is as low as 0.1 inches or plus or minus 0.1 inches. So you can manage and control at extremely low pressure levels with the DLP device. We're happy to send samples of any of these devices to you. So if you haven't used this product in the past and you're considering it for an upcoming application, please reach out. I'd be happy to put the product in your hands so you can see the quality, the American-made quality of this product firsthand. You can show it to your customers. You can show it to your technicians to see how easy it is to install, set up, and commission. Along with that DLP device, we have the full range of accessories that go with it, from the pitot tubes for duct applications to the pickup ports for the isolation rooms and building pressure, as well as the medical grade tubing that connects all of those accessories to the device itself. Not shown here, but we also have an outdoor air pickup port accessory, so for managing your building static pressure. So if you'd like to see the data sheets, pricing, or info on those, please reach out to me anytime. Happy to help. In recent weeks, we've heard a lot more conversations about indoor air quality in regards to people's overall health. And this is something that I'd like to get as much feedback from you as possible. We'd like to hear what you're hearing and see what you're seeing in regards to this matter. It seems, in my experience at least, in years past, when we talked about indoor air quality, we were talking primarily about occupant comfort. And then it changed a little bit to things like VOCs and particulates for off-gassing from certain carpets, chemicals, paints, things like that, cleaning supplies. But now with this recent COVID-19 outbreak, we're seeing a lot more conversation about indoor air quality in regards to not just occupant comfort, but occupant health. That the fact that you can mitigate some of the microbial spreads, whether it's bacteria or virus, by controlling the temperature and humidity in the space to tight tolerances that research shows that viruses and bacteria can grow better or worse in certain areas depending on the temperature and humidity levels. So we'd really like to hear your feedback and what you're seeing on this. So that's why we've got these slides in this presentation, because we're seeing more and more discussion, and we're seeing a renewed kind of importance or a renewed emphasis, if you will, on measuring temperature and humidity, not just for energy efficiency, but for overall occupant health and for mitigation of these microbial germs, for lack of a better term. So with that said, we carry and manufacture a full line of temperature and humidity sensors that can meet the highest levels of accuracy and even the tightest tolerances that you would have. So any output available, compatible with any type of control, BMS or PLC out there, numerous configurations. So any type of configuration, whether it be duct, outside air, averaging, immersion, strap-on, wall mount, and et cetera, we have that sensor. We have the ability to build those with NIST certificates so you can document to your customer that these sensors are performing at the absolute highest levels of accuracy. We have 1% accuracy humidity sensors available. We have high accuracy thermistors that are plus or minus 0.1 degrees C. And all of these are available and able to ship right away. So please reach out if you see any of these demanding applications. And when people are monitoring, say, negative pressure, like we talked about a minute ago, also a good idea to have very tight tolerances for the temperature and humidity measurement as well. Because if a mitigation of this particular virus is key, we want to do that through all tools in our shed, not just by measuring negative pressure, but also optimizing the temperature and humidity conditions to not only maximize energy efficiency and occupancy and occupant comfort, but also for occupant health. As I mentioned, all of our sensors, or I shouldn't say all, vast majority of our sensors, we can provide with NIST calibration. You see in the photo here, this is Elson loading some temperature probes into one of our NIST chambers. That happens about, that's probably 50 feet or so down the hall from here where those chambers are sitting. And so we do have the ability to do that upon request. It's not provided by default, but we do have the ability to document that and provide that, that level of documentation with pretty much any of our sensors. So please reach out. What types of these environments, or what types of critical environments are we seeing more people ask about? I mentioned isolation rooms briefly, and I'll take you back to junior high science class when we talked about weather patterns and high and low pressure. And so air moves from areas of high pressure to low pressure. So when you have an occupancy room or an isolation room like this, in which the occupant is presenting with symptoms of COVID-19 or any other type of infection, you're going to want air to stay in that room. So when a doctor or nurse opens that door, you don't want to have a rush of potentially infected air flowing out of that space. So you can use our differential pressure transducer like the DLP here to monitor the differential pressure between inside the space and outside the space, so that you can ensure the pressure is higher outside the space. So when that door opens, air would move in instead of moving out. So that's a primary application that we're seeing people ask about, on a daily basis here is what sensors or how do we set up these isolation rooms? And we do have not just the sensors, but all of the related accessories that you would need to set up, install, and commission an isolation room to maximize that, or maximize the occupant health and also mitigate the spread of any microbials. We're seeing a similar type of things for labs. Researchers all over the world are working feverishly to develop treatments and vaccines for COVID-19. And those laboratory environments are going to be very similar to the isolation rooms where you want to maintain a negative pressure. So that's also something that we're seeing regularly requests for. Similar type of situation for pharmaceuticals. Once we get to the point where there is a vaccine, and let's hope that is very soon. Every day I'm seeing some more and more promising information about that, or promising news about that, including something right here from our own University of Wisconsin, right down the street. So similar type of thing. We want to keep those tolerances as tight as possible in the spaces where these are being manufactured to ensure the highest quality product gets out the door. So that's something we're seeing regularly. Overall, room differential pressure is very key to hospitals and other healthcare facilities, not just to manage and maximize the energy efficiency, but there are all types of rooms where you want air flowing in or out, or you don't want air flowing in or out. So it's not just negative pressure in an isolation space. Sometimes, we see a lot of operating rooms or surgical suites where, they'll have it for positive pressure, because if you have somebody opened up on an operating table and a nurse or doctor comes in, you don't want things, rushing in that could potentially cause an infection to someone who's in an exposed position. So that's a very common application for room differential pressure. And then again, data centers. At this period of time where people are working remotely, people are accessing their computer systems and networks remotely, people are conducting more business online via webinars like you're watching now. It is at the utmost urgency to have regular access to your data, your servers, your networks. So data centers obviously are a key factor in that. We need to have 100% uptime in these data centers. And so our temperature and humidity sensors are used regularly, as well as pressure sensors, to help cool the data centers and help maximize and prevent downtime in these facilities due to the operating conditions being too hot, too humid, too cold, or other types of facility or other types of situations like that. And lastly, this overall indoor air quality, and again, we would really like to hear your thoughts and feedback regarding some of the changes that we're seeing in indoor air quality as it applies to COVID-19. We're seeing a renewed importance of emphasizing temperature and humidity as part of overall indoor air quality, and not just focusing on energy efficiency and occupant comfort, and not just focusing on things like VOCs or particulates in the air, but taking a more all-encompassing view of indoor air quality to focus on occupancy health and microbial mitigation of the spread of any microbial germs. So again, we'd really like to hear your feedback and thoughts on that. To that end, we'd like to continue the conversation. It doesn't end here. We'd like to reach out to us with your comments and questions. You can find us on Facebook at ACI.sensors, on Twitter and on YouTube at ACI Sensors, and you can also find us on LinkedIn. So with that, that's going to conclude the presentation portion of our webinar, and I'll answer a few questions before we conclude our webinar today. You'll see my contact information up on the screen once again. I apologize for the bad before and after picture that you're seeing. The young man here right there is about 10 years ago. So a lot less gray hair on that young man. Don't know where this guy doesn't work here anymore. But you see my contact info and phone number there on the screen, and we're happy to help if you're watching the archived version of this and questions come up, please reach out. So some of the questions that we've had submitted to us are, we'll answer those right now. First question is, are any specific products out of stock or expected to be anytime soon? Thanks for the question. No, right now we're at full manufacturing capacity. There's no specific products or departments that are down or that we anticipate in near term any shortages. Obviously, situation here on the ground and with the supply chain, as you all know, is changing rapidly, and Murphy's Law applies here in Middleton, Wisconsin, just as it does anywhere else. We did send Murphy home. He's working from home, and we're practicing social distancing with Murphy and keeping him at least 6 feet away, hopefully more, and we hope to not let him back in the factory anytime soon. But as of right now, we don't have any areas that are long lead times. What are your overall thoughts on how this COVID-19 outbreak is affecting the building automation or HVAC or controls market? Good question. I'll give you a caveat that here at ACI, we have customers worldwide, primarily in North America, and so it's a very diverse and broad base of customers, mainly through North America. So, in recent weeks, I've talked to a number of people that and asked their opinion on what they're seeing. So, it's a geographically diverse market that we are working with. But overall, people are very optimistic. Jobs that are ongoing are still ongoing. We haven't seen too many cases of people being called off of jobs or jobs canceled or postponed. Specifically, I've seen a lot of schools that are using the shutdown as an opportunity to get work done. So they're calling for jobs that were scheduled for this summer to be moved up. I have seen anecdotally some other schools that are completely shut down. There's been some buildings that are completely shut down and they're not letting any work, whether it's employees or contractors, come in to do work. But for the most part, people are still working as usual. It's all systems go. I've heard from some customers that bid activity has slowed. So going forward, we'll see how that affects the industry long term. And again, this is something that we'd love to hear your feedback on as well. Wherever you are, we do have a very diverse and broad set of customers. So it's awfully hard to get a picture, overall of what the market's doing. But as we stand, we're busy, we're open, and we expect to be so for the near term. Another question is, can a DLP be used to control positive pressure? Yeah, good question. Thank you. We talked specifically about negative pressure in the presentation. And of course, yes, it can be used to monitor positive pressure. The easiest way to do that, if you have an existing room, and we have seen this application come up where an existing room, they want to change from positive to negative pressure. The simplest way to do that would be to just switch your hoses or your tubing in the ports. These have a high and a low port. You just switch those out and you just changed it from negative on one side to negative on the other. So yes, this device can be used for positive or negative pressure. You can change the settings right on using the dip switches. Right here, you can change the ranges in the sensor. So if a room changes from positive to negative and you need to change the span or the range that it's measuring, you can do that on there. Be advised, please power it down before you change the span. If you do that while it's powered up, it can damage the circuitry. So with that, that's the last question that I had. We'll conclude this webinar on our pressure transducers and temp and humidity sensors that are used in critical environments that we're hearing more and more about during the COVID-19 outbreak. As always, thank you for joining us. Please continue the conversation, and we look forward to talking with you again soon. Thanks again. We hope that everyone's doing well out there, and please stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a great day.